number one source. Sports Card Nation. The hobby is the people. Sports Card Nation.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 306 Sports Card Nation. Today, part 2 of our candid conversation with Chris McGill and Kristina Thorson of Card Ladder. And finally, it was good to catch up with them after probably, I think, almost 2 years. And if you missed part 1, that was last week's episode. Go back and check it out. Today, we have our conclusion of our conversation. So with that being said, let's not delay any further. Quick commercial break, and then we'll be on with Chris and Kristina.
For nearly 50 years, Sports Collectors Digest has been the voice of the hobby, bringing you comprehensive coverage of the sports collectible industry. From industry news, auction results, market analysis, and in-depth stories about collectors and their collections, Sports Collectors Digest has everything you need to know about the hobby. SCD is also your leading source for listings of sports collectible dealers, card shops, card shows, and the latest from the industry's top companies. To check out all the latest news or to subscribe to the hobby's oldest magazine, visit sportscollectorsdigest.com or call 1-800-829-5561.
We are now happy to present you with part 2 of our conversation with Chris McGill and Kristina Thorson of Card Ladder.
Now on the topic of potholes, which is a great one, because I was saying, I think every collector and content creator and participant in the hobby, they deal with it on some level. You know, I mean, if people have a disagreement, it can get heated and it can involve, you know, the stakes can feel really high because like certain people really believe in this card and other people really believe in that card, or some people, you know, really believe the industry should look like this and other people really believe it should look like that. And, you know, it can become personal and it can become about motivations. And at the end of the day, it's like, it's okay. It's what's going to happen. You know, people are going to argue. They're going to get upset at each other. They're going to fire some shots. You know, hopefully at the end of the day, everybody who's when cooler heads prevail, people calm down a little bit. They can get back on the same page and have some mutual respect going for each other. But then, you know, the other side of the coin too is that this is a hobby. Occasionally, people do need to blow off steam. Occasionally, people do observe things that are out of whack or that somebody might be up to no good. And, you know, it takes balls to call that stuff out because there can be a lot of blowback. You can get a lot of flack. Now, sometimes people mess up, you know, and they call out the wrong thing or they didn't have the full facts straight. And that's okay. I think we should have a tolerance for people to make mistakes or to get something wrong, give them a chance to correct the record, give them a chance to get it right. But, you know, we also have to sort of take the perspective that, you know, think about Ben Simmons. All right. Ben Simmons is a guy who had a nice start in Philadelphia and then it went awful. And on the Philadelphia 76ers. And then he kind of forced his way out of the team. People were wondering, is he faking his injury? Is he not? The last time Ben Simmons rolled into Philadelphia to play a game, there was hundreds of people waiting outside the bus just booing him, calling him every name in the book. They were throwing bottles at him. You know, I mean, it was vicious. This is the life for people who have a public facing dimension to their persona. And when you're in the public sphere, when you're acting as a public figure, this is going to come with the territory. People are going to be tough. People are going to blow off steam. People are going to have harsh words. And I just think it's actually incumbent upon the recipient of the criticism to take it seriously. I think almost everybody out there in the world has something worthwhile to say. There are some people who are just assholes, but almost everybody has something worth listening to. So if somebody's criticizing me, for example, and even if it's sharp and it's, you know, it's mean and it's tough, I still want to listen to it because you know what? Maybe this person's saying what 100 other people are thinking, and maybe they're not putting it as politely as they could, but I could still learn something from this. There might be something there that I can actually take and make myself a better person from it. So let me listen to it and take it seriously, even though it stings. But let me just listen to it, take it seriously, see if I can learn from it. And then secondarily, even if I can't, you know, even if it's just kind of an unfair criticism, somebody's just kind of, you know, being tough and slinging some mud, let them. You kind of pointed out that sometimes people are, it's a reflection of their own unhappiness, which could be the case. Sometimes there's a morsel of truth in there, but even if there isn't, people need to vent. People need to blow off some steam. I think the best thing you can do as a recipient of that is just try to have empathy. You have to be careful too, just because sometimes you have to set the record straight. If somebody is saying something untrue about you or something unfair about you, and then other people read it and then they don't know the full context, then sometimes you have to go out and you have to set the record straight, and that can be annoying and it takes effort, but that's just part of life. Sometimes you have to go out there and you have to stand up for yourself, but other times part of life is just saying, hey, this is my fellow human being. They might be going through something. They also might have a point. Let me take it seriously, but let me not internalize it too much. It's not going to bother me, but let them say it, and let's see if we can learn something from it. At the end of the day, have some empathy and compassion for people who, might be having a hard time, or they might be blowing up steam, or whatever the case may be. So that's kind of how I look at potholes, John.
Yeah, it's a great point you made too. With I like what you said. Like, hey, I'll listen, and maybe I can learn something in the process. And you use a word that I think is important, like personal. If someone can avoid making it personal, like you can be critical without making it personal, right? You can say, hey, I don't like when you did this, or I don't agree when you did that. But when you resort to name calling or labeling and other things like that, I think that's where the line gets crossed. That's where, like you said, I'm kind of like you. Like I've had, hey, I didn't like that new segment you did, or the old segment you did. It's kind of past its expiration date, right? If you come at it with tact, I'm more apt to listen to you than if you just say, John, you're stupid and that segment sucks too, right? You know what I mean? Because it comes from an animosity place where the first thing I'm like, is he really critiquing the something, or he just doesn't like me because I'm ugly? Is it as simple as that, or should I really take this point? But the point gets lost in the personal aspect of it. If you use tact, I know I spoke to you even before we started recording about, we do double episodes now with this show in the interview guests to make them shorter and more consumable. That was from people saying, hey, John, love the show, but long, like a little bit long, and it was something that, like I told you, I was thinking about doing, but those people who used tact and said that, it made that decision easier, and I think it was a good one. And I think we're more apt to listen to people when they use tact than when they just cross the line right out the gate, and you're a jerk, and who knows what else. And I think we've all dealt with it, some more than others, obviously. And like you said, you can't lose sleep about it. You just gotta do what you think is the best. You're not going to win the whole room, right? I know that from my coaching days as a high school football coach and baseball coach. Like, you could go undefeated, but there's going to be the parents whose kids didn't play as much as they thought, and they're still going to dislike you, even though they got a big trophy in their son's room, right, or daughter's room. So you just knowing that's half the battle. And, but like you said, you should always, try to be open to feedback as long as it comes from a respectful place with tact. And I think I think that says a lot about you that you said that. Someone else might have answered that a different way, or, hey, I don't listen to them. I block out all the white noise. And sometimes that's not a wrong answer either. But the fact that you said, hey, I don't shut the door. I maybe there's something I can learn, even though the message may not be great. Maybe there's something I can take from it. And I think that says a lot about both of you. That's the fact, and I appreciate that. Right. So, speaking of the grind, right? I talked about you're making the rounds at the shows. Talk about the difficulties of that. Your family, folks. I know right now. You're in Chicago with family, but talk about the grind of doing shows. I think people don't realize that they think a show is just all fun and games, and it is fun. It is fun. I'm not, as someone who does them, like I said, on both sides of the table as a content creator, it's for sure fun. But there's also a lot of work that goes into it. Travel, not as much sleep, always on the go. You lose what day it is. I don't even know what day today is. Let me look at my phone and see, right? Let me look at my phone and see where I got to be and what time and those sort of things. I don't think people who don't, and I'll stick up for them. Maybe they just because they don't do that, they don't understand it. It's not that they're naive; they just don't get how that process works. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to do surgery, so I can't speak to that, right? But talk about the grind and some of the difficulties with the travel, setting up, representing content creation, representing Card Ladder, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so preparing to go to a show starts at least 4 months before the show. For the national, it's a lot sooner. Like the national prep starts like now for next summer. And that is because we're a small team and we have to continue operating and running Card Ladder while we're at shows. So we have an amazing content director, and he starts putting together things about 4 months before a large show to prep his work for content to come out during the show and after the show about what we were doing there or who we were talking to there. And then we have to organize hotels and travel and booth space. We also have to pack up our entire offices and bring them with us to the show and set them up in hotel rooms so that, you talked about the grind, John, like we're at the show talking to people and answering questions, giving out things for giveaways and whatever. And that's during show hours. So we're pulling double duty during shows as well, because after that, we're running out of the convention center, trying to grab something to eat quick, and then going up to the hotel office. And then we're sitting down to review comps and sales and make sure we're answering customer feedback that comes in online. Because it's not just we're talking to customers during the day, we're also talking to them at night who might not be at the show or who need assistance. And we're answering DMs throughout the entire show to help people. And then we're staying up until about 3 a.m. getting those sales reviewed so that everyone wakes up in the morning to go to the show with accurate comps and accurate data so that they can make the best informed decisions. And we're waking up with them as well so that we could be at our booth and there to answer questions or to do whatever we have to do on the agenda that day, including meetings and things as well with other companies or other people. So it's a lot. Like, honestly, it takes me like personally to like for after a big show, it takes me about 2 weeks to just like get back on my normal schedule of like, I'm on top of my emails, I'm on top of the DMs, I'm on top of the customer service, because like everything kind of falls like secondary to a large show like the national. So it's exhausting, but I have a great team, and the guys all pull their weight so that I can wake up late one morning if I had like a crazy day the day before.
I just gotta stop right there. Kristina's being a little too humble. I mean, she is the sled dog pulling the sled when it comes to the shows, when it comes to setting them up, when it comes to, preparing the booth, ordering the pieces that come in, assembling it when it gets there, interfacing with all the different people that need to be interfaced with to make sure we get our booth and that we're set up in the right spot. She oftentimes is planning the whole trip. I mean, all the way down to the accommodations. And then she is the one who's always anchoring our booth. I mean, Josh, myself, and Nick would go nuts if we had to sit in that booth all day. We get to walk around and buy cards and talk to friends and dealers.
Chris, I love you. I love you. I am going to attest to that because whenever I come by, it's always Kristina. You're there sometimes. I'm not going to throw you under the bus, but I think she's clocking more hours.
Oh, 100%. That's why I just said she did a great job explaining it. But I just wanted to add on that, like, she doesn't take a break during the whole time. It's a very stressful environment. It all falls on her shoulders. We've never had anything but a very successful show because we're in great hands when we're in her hands for that stuff. But just so she doesn't downplay herself too much there, I mean, she is the star of the show, no pun intended.
Thank you. But I will say, this past national, like, Josh one day was like, hey, sleep in tomorrow. I will cover the booth in the morning because you're running on fumes. And so my team does step up for me is all I want to say. Like, they are really good. The guys are really good of, like, Chris being like, why don't you go walk around, like, for, like, an hour or two? I got this. Like, I'll stay here. So, like, it's taken us a few years, but they can read when I'm at my breaking point. And right before I get there, John, they'll step in and be like, hey, let's not have a Kristina panic attack or a freak out stress moment. You step away. We got this. So, I have a great team that supports me and recognizes the work that I put in. And therefore, it's been, knock on wood, successful shows thus far.
Yeah, it's great. Like, you're there for each other. It's a well-oiled machine, even though it's a grind and tough and has its moments, right? You can depend on the person you work with or work, behind you, or everyone's willing to kind of pitch in and do what it takes to make it happen, or relieve someone else to give them a break so they can recharge and replenish. And, that's not always the case. And sometimes that's why maybe someone doesn't make it or they burn out. How many shows, how many shows are you doing? I know it changes every year. We got new shows popping up every year. Approximately, how many weekends would you say are you on the road?
So we go to shows, but don't always set up at them. And a lot of that is for meetings or just like to walk around and do some branding stuff, like talking to dealers, getting people set up on Card Ladder when we can help in person. But setting up and like doing a full booth is kind of rare for us due to the fact that the show hours are very long and we have to work every night. So we really save that for the large shows. And that's like 2 to 3 a year that we'll set up at the large shows. The National's always one of them. But we live in Dallas during the basketball season. So we're at those shows. We also travel. So we were just at the Minneapolis show this past month in September. We're planning to go to the Orlando show at the beginning of November. So like there are things like that where we'll go to shows and walk around and talk to people, have meetings, but not full setup. So those shows are my favorite because I get to actually experience the show floor versus when we have booths and set up, I'm pretty much stuck at the booth. And if I want to see someone, I better message them and tell them to come find me.
Yes, we're talking about the grind and the work and effort that goes into pulling all this together, right? And you guys do a great job. Like you said, you gave your team credit, which again illustrates the kind of folks both of you are.
Time for a quick break, but we'll be right back.
Hobby Hotline is the hobby's only live interactive call-in show. Join some of your favorite hobby personalities every Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, to discuss the hottest hobby topics. If you miss us live, catch us after the fact on all major podcast platforms. Follow us on socials at Hobby Hotline.
Hobby News Daily is your homepage of the hobby, providing original writing, exclusive gem rate data, a daily morning minute podcast, and some of the best content creators in the hobby. Remember, hobbynewsdaily.com and at Hobby News Daily on social. Happy collecting!
We are back.
How has like this rise, through the hobby? Like you were card collectors before all this too, and we're all here on this show because we collect cards. How has it changed sort of how you hobby? I imagine it has. I mean, even I don't do nearly as much as you guys do, but even the content creation has cut into the time that I can click on a selling platform and try to find a card or buy something, or go to a show that I'm not set up at and try to get cards that. Talk about the different, how it's changed how you hobby and collect.
You mean kind of just like working in the industry, how that has had an impact?
Yeah, just you're with Card Ladder and content creation, you got to put the time into that, and obviously it's like a pie, right, Chris?
Yes.
You can't make it necessarily bigger. You just have to allot how many slices and who gets what gets what slice.
Yeah,
that more or less along those lines.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. One of the things that got sliced right away was how much time we put into preparing for podcasts. So back when we were doing the House of Jordans podcast, which like we had to stop when we started doing Card Ladder, especially at that time when we were like all over the place. I was supposed to be studying for the bar. Kristina was working another job, and then we were trying to start this company too. And but so we just didn't have time. But so one of the things we did was like for the House of Jordans podcast, I mean, we would have like a 10 to 15 page script just full of notes and research that we would consult. And, the time to be able to do that just went away. Like the time spent, the mental effort spent, like researching and preparing had to go into building and researching for the business. So what we did is a pretty good hack, I think, at the end of the day, for content. So we could keep like a weekly piece of content coming out. I just started putting out a call for questions. So that started on Instagram about 4.5 years ago. Josh and I and Kristina started doing like a live show, and we would just go live late on Friday night. But all day during Friday, I'd put a call for questions on Instagram. To anybody who sees this, if you have topics, what's on your mind as a collector, what are things that are bothering you? What are things that you're happy about? What's a sports card topic that you'd like to hear discussed a little bit? And people would just flood them in. And they do now they do the work for the show. Now my time preparing for a podcast is just limited to I have to take about an hour right before the show starts. I just have to collect all the topics and the questions, just collect them, put them all into a document, and then just kind of go into the show and read.
But in your credit too, Chris and Kristina and Josh, I know he's not on screen, but it's easy, but it's also interactive, right? It's making people part of the show.
Yes.
And it's something I don't do. I think I do a little bit of it, not on anywhere on that level that you just talked about. There's definitely more of a ceiling even for me to do that. I do a Q&A with Hobby Quick Hits, but it's not live. So I like just hit record whenever I want to record the episode. Take those questions like you mentioned and do it. And I think, let's be real, it's easier to do a tape segment than to do a live segment, right? Because if I don't like something or, let me take two on that one, right? When you're doing it live, like any show that's live, there is no take two. Everyone sees it. Right. You can't, so, feather in your hat, right, is being interactive, whether it's to make you doing the show easy or not, it's also making people more involved in the show and feel part of the show. And that's a good thing. And something I try to do a little bit more of. I definitely have a ways to go. And I do it when I do it on the Q&A with Hobby Quick Hits. I'm not doing it live, so it's the degree of difficulty goes down even with what I do. But I wanted to throw that in there and
sure.
Give you some proper credit there. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's true. It is true. The pressure is higher when you're doing it live, and inevitably when you do things live, you'll say something stupid. I mean, I've done it a million times, so you just kind of hope, we'll just roll with the punches here. But, you know, I would like, ideally, I'd like to be more in a content space like how you approach it, which is you bring in guests, you have segments that get thought. I'm sure you're thinking about them throughout the week as you're sort of crafting your show and ideas are coming to you.
I have to write them down, Chris, because at my age, if I don't write it down, it's gone. Like, and it might never ever come back. So I'm a notes guy. I'm more of a notes guy as an older person than when I was younger.
Sure.
So now I have to, like, I write stuff down that I'm like, I wrote that down. I'm like, yeah, because I need to. Otherwise, it's going to be lost for either a while or potentially forever. So, you know, I always have to. People say, "What are you writing now?" And I'm like, something so I don't forget.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, no, I do this. I'm taking notes as we're talking right now, just in case you say something or Kristina says something. I want to go back to it. I literally am writing stuff down right now. So because that's just it's a great, you know, it's a great shortcut to freeze your brain.
It's a great tool. It's a great tool. Like, you don't have to, like, people say, oh, you know, you're writing it. You don't have to, like, people sometimes it comes across as like, oh, you need to write it down. No, I want to write it down. I don't need to write it down. Like, I want to write it down. You know, maybe there's a little need for me, with the memory and stuff when you get in your 50s. So, but no, I think it's good. It's all that attention to detail. You want to be thorough. Make sure you don't miss something. Right. Again, I think that speaks to the person and their work ethic and all that stuff. So, you know, but how about collecting wise? Like, has it changed sort of, you know, how you look at what interests you or not necessarily?
I think that there are avenues where it's like what we do and how focused in we are and learning new products constantly has helped to navigate some areas that I may not have traversed there myself as a collector. And then it's also, like you mentioned, like you don't always have the time to go on all the marketplace platforms to check for cards. So I have had that problem as well. And luckily, people surprisingly like me, I guess, where they will tell me when a card that they think I'll be interested in. Yes, I'm surprised when people do this. Well, like they'll be like, "Hey, I just saw this card that someone pulled on a break of this no-name player that I know you collect." And then I'll go message that person immediately and you know, be able to swipe that card up quick. And then, you know, there are the downfalls of publicly collecting a player or someone, though, as well, where someone may know that you collect this, so they will then charge you, you know, 5 times what they paid for it when they picked it up for the purpose of selling it to you. So, which I've had happen a couple times to me as well, where it's like, well, if I want this card, this is what their price is, because they maybe picked it up for $200, but they're okay with sitting on it until I'm super desperate and I'm willing to pay to get it into my PC.
It's a double-edged sword. It's a double-edged
sword. For sure.
Sword.
Yeah, it definitely is. But you know, like we said earlier, the people who are looking out for you far outweigh the people who will take advantage of you. So like I get a lot of DMs from amazing people who help me with my collection. And I'm always grateful to them. Like, for example, I had, so I'm collecting a 2020 Prism Rainbow of Maxi Kleba. I had 2 cards that I needed left. The Fast Break Bronze out of 20 and the Neon Green out of 5. Someone messaged me. He was a 16-year-old kid from Australia who said he was in his hobby shop when another kid pulled the bronze out of 20. And he was like, I got his contact information for you. I gave him your contact information. Like, here is the details. Like, I saw this card be pulled in shop and I immediately thought of you. Like, how how, if I wasn't active and like super vocal about this Prism Rainbow, how would I have gotten that card, right? Like it would have been like, the kid would have been like, oh, out of 20, cool, but who's going to collect this guy? Like, he doesn't start for the Mavericks. He was undrafted. He's in his 4th year playing basketball. Like, no one wants this card. But because this person listens to the crossover, this kid knew I wanted that card. So he quickly put me in contact with this other guy, and I was able to secure it for my collection. Which, now that I already brought it up, let me just make a public announcement to all of your followers. John, I am 1 card away from the 2020 Prism Rainbow of Maxi Kleber. I am missing the fast break neon green out of 5. If anyone has any leads on this card, which has never sold publicly, and I've been watching for 4 years now, please contact me at Kristina's PC on Instagram. One word, Kristinas PC on Instagram, on Twitter. Please contact me. I am dying to finish this rainbow. I've talked to Panini many times at shows, and they guarantee that this one card has made it into packs, and they don't know where it is either. So if anyone could help me finish this rainbow, there are 46 parallels in the 2020 Prism product. I have 45 of them, and I just need this last neon green out of 5. Okay, I'm done.
Let's go, folks. Help Kristina out. Be fair. Don't price gouge. Just think of the honor. You get to be the person that finishes that rainbow. It's like an assist, right? You get to. Yeah. She gets the slam dunk it, and you get the alley-oop it to her. And that would be an awesome. That's a great story too with the kid in Australia, right? That's going back to the hobby becomes a smaller place, even though Australia, right? The hobby is a worldwide thing. Like, even calling the show like Sports Card Nation, like it's more than it's world, right? And there's a perfect example all the way from Australia, and it wasn't even the person that pulled the card. He just happened to witness it, and that one thing led to another, and you added that card in that hunt to complete that journey. That's the beautiful stories that sometimes we don't talk about enough or think about even enough. So we got to get that we got to get you someone out there either has the card, knows someone that has the card. Maybe this hasn't been pulled yet, and it gets pulled, and they remember this. But let's get the last card. But that's a great story to kind of close on too, because that's the beautiful things about the hobby is the community. Even with me, I'll make this story short. I was on the hunt for a Tom Seaver rookie in Cleveland. I was actually in hunt for it the year before, but he had just passed away. They did a statue at Citi Field, so the prices were a little bit higher and the comps are a little bit higher than I wanted to go for it. That kind of calmed down. And so, but a lot of people knew I was looking for that card. So I was getting DMs or text, John, it's at this table, it's a PSA this, and it's this much. And like, I'm just thinking, man, people are taking time out of their day. They're at the National, right? The greatest show in the hobby, and they're stopping and texting or DM me, thinking about me, right? Or even whether that takes 10 seconds or 2 minutes, the fact that anyone cares enough about you or thinks enough about you to do that, really, it even hits home more than acquiring the card, is that somebody, cares enough about you to help you out. And I've done, it's reciprocal. I've done that. And I'm sure you have as well done that. And that's the hobby's the people. What is the tagline of the show for so long now? And it really kind of rings true. And it's the beautiful part of hobby, and it's why we enjoy it. Even though it can be a grind sometimes, it's why we're still here, still going and having fun with it. So I always give the guests the kind of the final word. Give out any social medias, websites, anything you want to share with people. I know you gave out your email so you can get your last Kleber card, but even for Card Ladder, the crossover, give out any of that stuff you want to share as well.
Kristina?
Well, I I was waiting for you. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Or I could. Yeah. Well, you're better at remembering all the socials.
Yeah, contact us on social, Card Ladder, one word, on TikTok, Twitter /X, Instagram. You can reach us at contact@cardladder.com. I'll answer, myself or Josh will answer all of your messages. You'll talk to us. Like, that's one thing we pride ourselves on, is that when you reach out, you talk to us and we can solve the problem or try our hardest before we tag the other one in. My Instagram and Twitter /X is Kristina's PC, one word, Kristinas PC. Crossovers are Friday nights. We're about to switch the times because daylight savings is coming up, so look out for that. You can reach Chris at Chris_HOJ. Josh is at Cardboard Chronicles. Nick is at Stiff Arm Wax. Like, you can reach us at Card Ladder as well. Yeah, just feel free to reach out. We're always reactive to messages.
Yeah, and you did a great, like, remembering all those handles and like that's great. Chris wasn't kidding when he said that. Like,
Yeah.
well, listen. In the very least, let's get Kristina that last card and put a bow tie on that thing, and that would be really cool. And obviously another great hobby story to add to the collection as well. Well, I say this all the time with you guys, Chris, Kristina, keep up the great work. I know the work that goes into it. You know, we use the word work. Sometimes we throw that around too easily, but not in your case. You guys are really, putting in the effort, all with a smile on your face. I couldn't do what you do, but if I did, I probably would be a lot grumpier than you are. Let's put it that way. So you do it, and every time, like I said, I've seen you at the shows, whether it be the National or somewhere else. You're always pleasant, and both of you. And it's not as easy to do as people think it is. And so I want to give you kudos there. So keep it up. We'll have you back. I don't remember. I think it's been over a year since you're out. Maybe close to 2 years. Let's do it a little bit. Next time you come back, we won't wait as so. But thanks.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, thanks for having us, John. And anytime you want to talk to us, you know that we will make it happen. It's been an honor to come back.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you. Always fun catching up with Chris and Kristina. Been too long between the last time I had them on and having them on for these past 2 episodes. So my promise to them is not to have that big of a gap between kind of catching up again. And they're very busy, like you heard them say, traveling the country at shows, doing the stuff they do for Card Ladder. And so glad they made some time for us here on Sports Card Nation. We're going to hear from our Hobbies the People announcer, and then a few final thoughts and wrap up today's episode.
Time for our Hobby is the People announcer of the week.
Yo, this is the Card Carver. Remember, the hobby is the people.
If you'd like to be the Hobby is the People announcer of the week, do a WAV or MP3 file and send it to sportscardnationpc@gmail.com.
That's a wrap for this week. Huge thanks to you, the listeners out there, because without you, there is no us. If you like the show, we truly appreciate positive reviews. Big ups to our great guests who drive the show and our awesome sponsors who make it all possible. Sports Card Nation will be back next week, but don't forget to catch either Hobby Quick Hits or Card Mentions coming up on Monday. I'll leave you with this. How do we change the world? One random act of kindness at a time. Remember, the hobby is the people.
Hi, I'm Isaac Alpert, a longtime card collector and the co-founder of the Penny Sleever. My wife and I started the Penny Sleever with a simple premise in mind: to offer collectors top quality supplies at fair prices. We offer a full range of hobby supplies, and we'll get them to you fast. Whether you're looking for a 260-point magnetic for that oversized patch card, or a slew of semi-rigids for your next PSA submission, the Penny Sleever has you covered. Shop now at thepennysleever.com and use the promo code SCNation to get 10% off your first order. That's SCNation for 10% off at thepennysleever.com. The Penny Sleever. Top quality supplies, fair prices.
Iron Sports Cards is your #1 source for all your PSA and other grading submissions. Their elite status improves turnaround times. Heck, they even provide the card savers. Their chat rooms provide updates on all your submissions. They also offer wax options and single cards to cover all the bases. Check them out on Facebook at Iron Sports Cards Group or on the web at ironsportscards.com, or even give them a call at 1-877-IRON-PSA. Rob's got you covered.